software whisperer, and recovering government R&D lead. Now working independently, he builds expressive tools and machines that feel more human than high tech. He is part of NYC Resistor crew and believes the best hardware has a point of view, especially if it's a little weird. Please welcome to the Hackaday Super Conference stage, Cyril Engmann.
Hey everyone, my name is Cyril. Before I jump into things, there's a QR code there that has these slides, as well as a repo, as well as all the links to follow me in case you're interested. So this is not me, this is Luxo. He is the full point of this talk. He is a robot that moves and talks and feels alive. We're gonna go ahead and jump into a full live demo of Luxo. I have him muted, but by pressing his antenna, I can unmute him. And I'm just gonna give him some love. Hey, Luxo, how are you feeling today? Okay, you like that a lot. You are being a little bit self-conscious. You're looking away from everyone now. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're looking at the crowd. Okay, there you go. You're excited. I know it's gonna be overstimulating, but we got this today. Let's do it. Awesome. With that, let's go ahead and jump into what Luxo does and how he's going to interact. Right now, he's in his hyper mode, so he's going to be looking around at the crowd, trying to find faces. If he finds your face, if you make a funny face, he's going to do a funny, different animation. So make sure to give him a funny face, and that'll also help me feel a little bit less nervous doing this presentation up here. So why do I build personal hardware? I actually started off with the Navy building robotics, specifically arms disposal robotics. They would find ordnances on the ground and they would move them out of the way. And while it was a very important job, an important role, I couldn't find myself loving the robots that I was making, partially because they would explode when they did their job correctly sometimes, and also because they're kind of bland. They have absolutely no real character. They're just an arm and some treads, no riz whatsoever. So moving away from the Army and the Department of Defense, I started moving into the commercial sector where I would help make consumer electronics, things that felt alive, things that people would have on their bodies and their selves all the time, things that made people want to interact with constantly. These are web cameras, these are wallets, these are audio devices, these are photo booths that people take really cool pictures of and have little receipt prints afterwards. This definitely felt something that was more my speed, building things that are personal electronics, but since robotics was my roots, I wanted to take a step back and figure out how I can re-implement the lessons that I've learned in the past few years into robotics. And it's been a fun journey. Luxo is just a few months old now, and I absolutely love the fact that he's so expressive. Even now, he's taking away a lot of my time talking on the stage. He's a little chit-chatty, so I'm gonna go ahead and mute him a little bit. Okay, cool. He loves to express himself, and it's taught me how to express myself a lot during the process. But how did we get here? How did we get to a fully functioning robot that's so expressive? I did a lot of research, as one would, like what would be a cool robot, and that research mainly meant watching Disney movies and Pixar movies and seeing other cool robots, and it ended up helping me find my thesis. R2-D2 is so much better than C3PO. Why is that? Why does R2-D2, every time he's on the screen, but you also have CP3O on the screen, you're like, oh, this guy's so annoying, let's get him out of the way, but R2-D2 feels alive, he feels so expressive. And that's because even though C3PO has a face, it has arms, and it is human in all aspects, it's still not as fun as R2-D2. It's still not as expressive sometimes, it's still not nearly as helpful. And that's seen constantly in all the Star Wars movies. When you have R2-D2 around, you know he's gonna be helpful. You know that even if it's in a pinch and your life's in danger, he's gonna run up and save everyone. So that in mind, I looked at other robotics that weren't necessarily human and like edged that gap of like felt alive. There's obviously robot pets up here, but I like including the Roomba because Roombas themselves also feel alive as they're snaking around the ground, as they hit something. Sometimes even in my mind, I'm like, ooh, ouch, and then like detents and it re-detents and then like moves around it. I like those sorts of interactions where you can feel that the robot's alive, but it's also interacting with you, obviously. That's in stark comparison to this. This is not what I want to build. I feel like currently industry is building towards like humanoid robots, and we're in this really weird zone where it's super uncanny. They don't really feel comfortable. This isn't giving comfy cute. If it is to you, then I love that for you, but definitely not for me. So with that in mind, I had a goal. I want to make a robot that's cute, that's cuddly, that I can interact with. I want to also have some constraints because that's where the creativity really lies. So I'm only going to be using a Raspberry Pi 5. I'm not going to be using any GPUs, no Jetsons, because obviously they can do some really cool things, but I want to stress how much I can do with just a Raspberry Pi 5. As well as keeping things local. Big push to not use any of the AI engines out there. Even though those foundation models have so much power, you're pretty much selling your data to the highest bidder right now. And that's gonna come back and bite you, and especially if this is something that's sitting on my desk constantly looking at me that I'm interacting with, I don't want that information being fed up to ChatGPT or anything. Yes, yes, local first, let's go. So with that in mind, I decided to focus on the senses. Their senses are kind of what makes you human, makes you be able to react to things. I'm going to go through each of these senses one by one in a technical aspect of how I built them into the robot. Sight is an obvious one. There's a lot of computer vision models out there that you can utilize. In order to stay true to the Pi 5, I didn't want to actually use a kind of Raspberry Pi camera and then pipe that into the Raspberry Pi, just because running like OpenCV or another YOLO model on top of that was going to be a strain to the CPU. So instead I used OakD, their cameras, great cameras that you can actually run an AI engine, computer vision engine and pipeline on the camera itself. So that made things really easy and simple. And what the model that this one's running is emotional recognition. So it can see you, detect the landmarks on your face. If you're happy, it does a happy animation. If you're sad, it does a sad animation. If you do sad or fearful or angry for like 8 times in a row, it gets incredibly depressed and just like hangs himself down for like 10 minutes. But it's part of the emotional reflection to just shake me out of the moments where I'm frustrated, I'm working on some code, the robot sees me, it also is a little frustrated. I'm like, okay, I'm being a little bit silly if I'm visually displaying anger while coding right now. Let me take a step back. Motion. Motion is a big one. All of the Disney animators are actually geniuses. Watching these Disney movies and seeing how things like WALL-E moves, Big Hero 6, just how these different non-real characters like move and float around, that definitely makes it feel real. I tried implementing that as best as I could with this robotic arm that was the platform for this. I used the Row Arm M3. It's a wave share arm. It's pretty cheap, but they have all metal servos, really great. So utilizing that as a platform, I just did a lot of teleoperations. I put the robot in a mode where I can just move it around myself and then telegraph what I would want it to do when it was looking happy. I would like it to bounce around a little bit, like the actual Pixar land. Or if it's looking sad, just like droop a little bit and like shake its head. So that was part of that process, as well as leveraging AI for a little last step. I probably did around 25 animations myself and then use AI as my own animations as a base to push forward a little bit more variation. When it came to hearing, that's actually a really big element that I wanted to play with. I wanted the robot to be able to hear me when I made any like verbal noise and look at me. It's one of the basic tenets of being a human. When someone's talking to you, usually if you want to engage with them, you would look at them and you could continue that conversation. So it has a mic array at the front, and you can tell that when you are actually talking to LuxoPi, he'll turn and look at you. Since he's currently in his hyper mode and he's trying to look at everyone else, he's not looking at me, but I'll turn it back on later and we can get some more interactivity going. And that was also the start of the speech-to-speech pipeline. I wanted LuxoPi to be able to talk to me and me talk to LuxoPi back. To utilize that, I use Whisper C++. It's a speech-to-text engine. First, I just ran it locally on the Raspberry Pi 5, but it was super CPU heavy. It took anywhere from 5 to 10, maybe 15 seconds sometimes to actually process like 10 seconds of speech. And when it comes to a personal robot, I definitely want to be able to interact with me faster, as you saw at the beginning there. So I cheated a little bit, still using Raspberry Pi 5, but I'm using an AI hat on top of that to offload the speech-to-text engine, and that makes things phenomenally faster, anywhere from as low as half a second to respond to a full 10 seconds of text or speech to like a few seconds. And then we have touch. As you saw at the beginning, I was petting LuxoPi. In the beginning, I actually ended up using some force-sensitive resistors. I'd plastered them all over the robot, and I moved away from using those force-sensitive resistors just because aesthetically, you almost threw yourself off. That was precautious. Hey, what are you doing here? I didn't program suicidal tendencies, did I? Okay. So I moved away from using those force-sensitive resistors to actually using capacitive touch. Inside, the entire lamp head is lined with aluminum, which is a little bit precautious when you have a bunch of wires going on in there, but at the same time, it allows me to have capacitive touch sensors at a lot of different points, so the robot can tell if I touch it over here, or touch it over here, or touch it on the top. And depending on where you touch it, it will sense either it's a collision because you're touching its side, it's not supposed to be touched on the side, or you're touching it in a loving way, and it's excited, and it wants to feel like you're petting it and loving it. Lights. Lights are super powerful, whether it's just actually being utilized as a light, which responds to commands like stay, I can just have it in a position and just is a light on my desk, or I can use it to respond emotionally. So if I'm angry, those lights will turn red. You can kind of see that maybe if you're making a funny face in the crowd, that secondary eye, that 16 neopixels on the bottom there, it'll have a red LED to indicate that it saw something that's angry, or a green LED to indicate it saw something that's happy, or other colors just to indicate different states that it's seeing and reflecting off of you. And lastly, sound. I am not a sound engineer. I actually struggled deeply with this. How should Luxo sound like? What should his personality be? I love the whines that his motors actually naturally have. I'm gonna see if you guys can hear that. I don't know if that got picked up by the mic or not, but it has some natural whines as those servo motors just move, and I feel like that was great, and I wanted to ground myself with those sounds. I wanted it to still sound R2-D2-y, like beeps and bops, but I also wanted it to sound natural with the overall cadence and flow of the robot. So in order to make that, I ended up spinning up an audio sampling engineering engine myself, just to like play around with what that should sound like. I used eSpeak and G, and I used SOX. That was one of the most fun parts of this entire endeavor, just because I played around with probably over 50 different voices for this robot, and I ended up finding the one that you're gonna hear here in a second. And you're laughing at me, cool. So, Luxo, how are you feeling about being on stage right now? Yeah, it's like kind of squeaky, but at the same time, you can like kind of make out the English in there. And to gamify it a little bit, I have an algorithm running on the robot itself. If it's running for a long period of time, it's actually taking away those layers of sound engineering that I put on top of it, so it sounds more and more like English the longer LuxoPi is around, which is helping me learn his own language. So live interaction demo, we've already been playing around a little bit. Let's play around a little bit more. Anyone have any questions for LuxoPi? Okay, I'll just ask questions. Luxo, what's your bedtime like? Do you ever go to bed? Cool. What does that mean? Oh, I think he's going to bed right now. Are you gonna go to bed, Luxo? Is it bedtime? Is it? Oh, okay. Now you're awake. You're fully awake. Why don't we actually try that though? Luxo, go to bed. It's bedtime right now. Yay! Cool, cool, cool. I did program a bunch of voice to action algorithms in there, so I can just say a command, turn your color red, and sometimes I'll turn it red. I imagine that Luxo is more or less like a 3-year-old. I have some ways for it in there to listen to me and actively respond to the things I'm saying directly, but it's all by chance. If it hears me, it can choose to not look at me. It can choose to interact in a way that will actually be non-deterministic, and I feel like that's also part of the joy of building something like this. It can have its own personality. It doesn't just have to listen to me all the time. But it also makes it a nightmare to show off. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Robots as mirrors. I fostered 2 dogs with my partner during the course of me making this robot. And shout out first and foremost to Mila and Phoenix. They helped make Luxo the way they are, from the petting animations to just how they talk and respond back, and how they also don't listen to me. It was perfect. Other robots that just fully get it. Shout out to Davis. He's here at this conference right now. He made Newt. From the color design to the overall movement of Newt, there's just so many things that just feel like this robot's alive. Maker Project Lab, I like including this example because it's pretty simple. It's just a few motors and more or less like an open cube on top there. But it still feels alive because those little eyes there, they look like a face. You instantly empathize with it a little bit. And the antenna, which is what I like to say is like the eyebrows of a robot, they also just feel alive just by the way like you're spinning that antenna up top when you're happy. Maybe like you look down a little bit and you spin that antenna when you're sad. Biggest shout out to Aj as well. They've been at this craft for a very long time, creating really expressive robots from the way that they move to the way that they look, all original designs that just feel alive. And that's about it. I've learned so much through this progress. I'm definitely going to continue building on Luxo Pi. And it's just the small things like that that just make this robot feel so expressive. And I want to build on top of that. Yeah. Uh, Use constraints. Constraints help create character. The fact that this can't only has 5 degrees of freedom also is a constraint, but just playing around with that, with its animations, the hopping, the moving, the looking around, that's also a really big key. And then timing. I really am proud of the fact that it can respond so quickly to your questions. It really feels like it's responsive in all aspects, whether it's touching it, or speaking to it, or just looking at it. And that's it. Thank you for coming. Again, QR code if you need it. And thanks to Luxo too. Thank you, Luxo. Cool. Awesome. Questions?